You're watching Extras from the Extension on Eagle Community Television.
Hi, I'm Holly Dickman from the Ellis County Extension Office, and today I'm here with Jim Strine, our former District Forester, I should say, with the Kansas Forest Service, and now currently a member of the Hays Beautification Committee. And I have Jim with me here today to help us learn about how to plant trees properly and how to maybe pick the right tree to plant. So, Jim, why is this a great time of year to plant trees?
This is usually planting in the fall time, I think, is an excellent time, mainly because of the weather conditions. You know, sure, we've had some hot weather the last few days. There's no two ways about it, but it cools down in the evenings. You get trees in the ground this time of the year, they will have time to get acclimated to the soil conditions. They'll start growing some, the root system will expand, and they'll be ready to go next spring. In my opinion, for fall planting, the ideal time is the last 2 weeks of September, plus the first 2 weeks of October is a good time to get trees in the ground in the fall.
So we're right in that time frame right now. I know the weather conditions this year have been ideal for maybe getting some trees in the ground where we haven't had that in the past.
In the past, you know, we've had such hot, dry summers that in the fall, the soils have just been so dry. This year, we've got ample soil moisture, so if people are thinking about planting a tree, now would be an excellent time to be doing it.
One of the things, you know, as I go out and look at trees and look at tree problems, one of the biggest mistakes I see is improper planting. Can you talk about how to properly plant a tree?
One of the biggest mistakes that people make is planting trees too deep. These were container grown trees. There was about this much, just kind of the soil on top of the root system. And so we had to dig that down until we came to the first root. You want to make sure that the root system is just right at the surface of the soil. Research has shown that if you plant trees too deep, the root system is going to be depleted of oxygen. And roots, like any living organism, need oxygen to survive. And if you have a poor root system, or if you don't have a healthy root system, you're not going to have a healthy tree.
Right. Yeah, and so you mentioned that first root, or it's called the root flare, and so this is a really good example of what Jim's talking about. You can see where that kind of just starts to flare out down at the base. You want that right at the surface. So like he said, he had to take about 5 inches of soil off the top, which seems extreme, but that really is how it is sometimes when you buy those plants from the garden center.
And another thing, with container grown plants, a lot of times the root system becomes root bound. It just grows right around on the inside of the container. And if you do not spread that root system out, you're going to be having problems, because once a root starts to circle, it will continue to circle. So you've got to make sure, if you've got circling roots, cut them, spread them out so that the root system can spread out naturally.
Yeah, we talked about how deep, but what about how wide? And what about amending that backfill? Should we do that?
As far as amending the backfill, no. We used to recommend you do that, but research has shown it's just best to put the soil that you dig out of the hole right back in. And you try to dig the hole maybe 1.5 to 2 times wider than what the root ball is. This way you've got nice mellow soil for this young root system to expand out in.
And finally, I guess after you get your tree placed in the planting hole, you get the soil put back in, there's some extra steps that you should take after that tree's in the ground.
Right. You want to make sure, I recommend staking trees. Now, some literature will say you only stake trees on windy sites. There's not too many sites in this part of Kansas that's not windy. The purpose of staking a tree is to hold the root system in place. You want the top to be able to move in the wind. This adds strength to it. But you don't want the root system to be moving, because if the root system moves, when these young roots are trying to expand out into the soil, they can break off.
Yeah.
Then the important thing is the mulch. To me, one of the best things you can do for a newly planted tree is to mulch it like the owner has here.
Yeah, one of the other things I guess to mention is organic mulch is better than inorganic mulch.
Correct.
For plants in general, but especially trees and shrubs.
You're exactly right. You see a lot of people using rock for mulch. The problem with rocks is they heat up during the day, and then they are still carry the heat through the night. It's important for trees to be able to recover from the heat of the day during the evenings. And if you've got a lot of rock around here, that's not going to happen, is what
Right.
it amounts to. So yeah, like wood chips is probably one of the best mulches you can use.
Yeah, something organic that breaks down.
Exactly.
So really it's not a difficult process. One of the other things that I see a lot of mistakes made is with watering. You know, sometimes when you plant a new tree, homeowners think they need to water it every day. That's not the case. Maybe you can shed some light on that.
Water it kind of frequently, but when you water, you deep water. The best thing is to get like a thin metal rod and to probe down to see if you have soil moisture there. With the weather conditions we've been having, these trees was planted last week. Probably once a week, maybe every 2 weeks would be good enough until the tree goes dormant. If you're planting evergreens, conifer trees, if during the winter time, if newly planted conifer, if we get an open winter, it would be good to water it during the winter time as long as the soil isn't frozen.
Right.
Deciduous trees are not that important. It would be important though to make this tree as well watered before the ground freezes.
Right. So, and I always tell people, even at Thanksgiving time or even Christmas time, sometimes our soil has not frozen at that time. And so if we've had no snow, no rain to speak of, you want to go out and make sure and give those trees something before we get back into the really cold winter months.
Yeah, Holly, just like, you know, basically we almost didn't have a winter last
Right.
winter is what it amounted to.
Yeah.
So, sure enough.
So finally, you know, we talked about how to plant the tree, but what about what kinds of trees to plant? And we have a good example of one that maybe isn't planted
Right.
as often as we'd like to see.
This is a thornless, fruitless Osage orange. It's extremely hardy. For people who, like me, grew up in northeast Kansas, we call them hedge trees. We really didn't like them because they invade pastures and things, but out here, this is an excellent tree. There's very few insect or disease problems. It can withstand wind, ice loads. To me, this is a tree that needs to be planted more is what it amounts to. And when we're on this subject, I do want to mention that the City of Hays does have a rebate program where people can get up to $50 per tree for planting a certain species that's on the preferred tree list. And that's available for anybody who lives within the city limits of Hays. There are forms available at all of the tree outlets. You can get them at the City Hall, the Parks Department, or you can get them online.
Yeah, well,
So-
thank you, Jim. And I know that list was somewhat put together by you and I and the City Parks Director.
Correct.
And so those are trees that are recommended for our area here. And if you have questions about what types of trees might do well here, don't hesitate to contact your local extension office. We have lists of recommended trees for not only Kansas, but Northwest Kansas specifically. So I can help you out with that, and other extension offices throughout the area can help you with that as well. So thank you, Jim. I appreciate you being here today.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to visit about trees. You know as well as I do, I enjoy talking about trees.
Well, I certainly appreciate it. And this is the time of year if you want to get out and plant some trees, go for it. We had a lot of tree damage earlier this summer, and so this is a good time to get those trees in the ground and replace some of those damaged things that we had to remove earlier. If you have questions, contact your local extension office.
You're watching Extras from the Extension on Eagle Community Television.